I'm coming. Ma? Bulelo. Bulelo.
Please mute your mic as you join. Please mute your mic as you join.
It's my class.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay, please, I'm waiting for people to join. Don't know, I have a bit of internet glitch this morning. So I'm trying to let people settle in before we start. Please mute yourself as you join. Please mute yourself as you join. Okay, good morning, everybody. I think we've wasted enough for people to join, so we can start the class now. I was waiting for people to join, that's why I was not talking, because the participants here has not reached the expected number. So I think we are full here now, and the people have officially joined on YouTube as well. So we can start the lecture now. It's not clear. If it is not clear, maybe it might be as a result of your network. The people on YouTube that says the slide is not clear, maybe it might be your network issue. If your network is not strong enough, it might be a cause that the lecture appears blurry. It is not clear at all, not at all. I don't know what you mean by that, but you can just listen to the lecture as we move on. Okay. Once again, good morning, everybody, and to the third series in the BIO 101 lecture / FST 101 actually for this session. So we have been able to cover a topic that is the introductory part, and now we are going into the second topic on the course outline that we shared with you in the beginning of the lecture. So without wasting time today, we are going to look at biomolecules and the central dogma of life. You will remember in our class on the first part of the class where we mentioned the organization of life, and we said that the organization of life, there is atoms to molecules or biomolecules, right? To organelles, to cell, down to biosphere. So today we are going to look at biomolecules, and please, I'm recording the lecture already. You don't need to remind me or request that I record. I record all my lectures, that's why I can share them with you eventually. Okay, so we're going to be looking at biomolecules and their importance in biological processes or life or in living organisms. So what are biomolecules? Okay, first, before we go further, let's look at learning objectives. That is, what do we expect you to gain from this lecture? So by the time we complete this lecture, you should be able to list the 4 major classes of biomolecules, be able to identify the chemical elements that constitute the biomolecules, be able to understand that molecules are synthesized from smaller subunits, to describe how glycosidic, phosphodiester, ester, and peptide bonds are formed in biomolecules, be able to compare and contrast DNA and RNA. In one of our classes, somebody asked about DNA and RNA, and I said the person should hold on till we get to biomolecules. Then we'll be able to answer that question in this class. When we get to DNA and RNA, you should be able to understand the genetic code and how they are read or interpreted, how they specify specific amino acids. And you're able to discuss the flow of genetic information. I remember also in our class on unifying themes in biology, we mentioned reproduction and inheritance. And we said the DNA is the blueprint of life that encodes genetic information. And I remember using the DNA and the nitrogenous bases as letters in which the information is coded, and those letters seem to come together to frame a word that protein can be able to interpret. So we are going to look at how information is transferred from DNA to RNA and protein, which is we know as the central dogma, actually. The central dogma talks about the transfer of information, the flow of information from DNA to RNA to protein, because the information encoded in the DNA cannot just be read by the cell. The cell does not understand what DNA is, right? But the information is now
It's just like when you are given a Greek letters to read, maybe a letter is written in language you don't understand, right? So somebody needs to interpret that letter to you, to interpret that language to you, so that I can be able to know what is encoded, what information is being passed across. So that is how genetic information flows through the central dogma from the DNA to RNA and to protein. And you will be able to see all of this and understand all of this in the course of the lecture, by the time we are done with this lecture. Okay, what are biomolecules? Simply put, biomolecules are molecules. Please don't drop you don't even have a matric number. Don't drop your attendance now. People should. Don't greet me. Onyade, don't greet anybody here. Biomolecules are molecules that occur naturally in living organisms. That is, these molecules are found naturally in living organisms, right? Although some of them can be synthesized, right? But we expect to see them naturally in organisms, right? If you don't have them, you are not a living thing, right? So some of them are synthesized, right? But they are natural occurring molecules in organisms. They range from primary to secondary metabolites that you see and that take part in metabolic processes. Like I said earlier, because they occur naturally, you obtain them from the food that we eat. For instance, you need carbohydrates. You know what to take to get your carbohydrates, protein, all of these biomolecules are obtained from foods that we eat, right? And I told you that biomolecules is a contraction of two words, biological and molecules. So when we say biological molecules, we're also referring to biomolecules. Then there are different classes of these molecules. We also refer to them as organic molecules or organic compounds because they are made majorly of carbon. Their structure, all of these, the carbohydrate, the lipids, and the protein, nucleic acids, they have carbon, right? And from your chemistry, organic compounds, organic chemistry, study the chemistry of a carbon and its compound. So because they contain carbon, they are only known as organic molecules or organic compounds, right? Another word we use interchangeably to describe our molecules is macromolecules, because from the word macro, large, right? They are large molecules that are made up from smaller subunits, right? Like we said in our introductory part, they are large molecules, right? They are polymers. We also use polymers to describe them. You can't hear anything. I don't know why you can't hear anything. My mic is on. If you can't hear, maybe you should try and log out and join again if you're able to do that, to join again, because there are people that are waiting to join Zoom. If you can't hear, maybe you should change your location. Might be as a result of your network. Maybe, yes, it's not my network, I think. Or is it me? Can others hear me? Please, if you can hear me, say hi, please, so that I will know that it's not my network that is stopping you from hearing what I'm saying. If you can hear, please say I. Okay, I can see one I. Okay. All right. It's okay. Thank you. Please don't say I. Don't say I again. The next I will be kicked out of the room. Adeyemi, I will kick you out. Please, no more I. Okay. All right. So please, if you can't hear, that means is your network. 100 I. Thank you. Please, if you can't hear me, it means your network is failing you. You may want to log out and join again or change your location. Thank you. Okay, I said because these molecules are large, right? We refer to them as macromolecules. They are, in terms of size, in terms of components, they like I said earlier, they're made up of subunits, right? So you see, when subunits come together repeatedly, they make large molecules, right? So they are known as macromolecules because they they have smaller subunits that aggregate to form them. Okay, there are 4 classes of macromolecules or biomolecules. We have the carbohydrates, we have the lipids, we have the protein, as well as the nucleic acids. All these are the macromolecules that we have. And the carbohydrates include the polysaccharides, the disaccharides, and the monosaccharides. The monomers are monosaccharides. The monomers of carbohydrates are monosaccharides, and they are joined by a specific type of bond. Then we have lipids. Lipids are not polymers, and we are going to see why we say they are not polymers along the lecture. They include the triglycerides, which are composed of fatty acids and glycerol. So fatty acids, 3 units of fatty acids and 1 molecule of glycerol come together to form triglycerides in lipids. Then we have proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids. The amino acids are monomers. Protein is a polymer, and they are also joined by a specific type of bond that we are going to look at later. Then we have nucleic acids. There are basically two types. We have the DNA and RNA, and their monomers are nucleotides. And we are going to see the structure of nucleotides as monomers of nucleic acids along the lecture. Okay, we said also in our class that atoms are the building blocks of molecules, right? And I said that they are joined by a specific type of bond that I asked you to go and look out for. I will mention it for you today. So we said that atoms actually start the organization of life. The smallest unit, right, is from atoms to molecules, right? So atoms, the most prominent is the carbon. Like I said earlier, all biological molecules are made up of carbon, and the other elements that you can see are the hydrogen, the oxygen, and the nitrogen. But majorly, the 3 atoms that are common to all of them are the carbon, the hydrogen, and oxygen. Not all of the 3, not all of the 4 biomolecules have nitrogen, for instance. Not all of them have sulfur. Not all of them have magnesium. But the common atoms to them, or you may want to say elements, are the carbon, the hydrogen, and the oxygen. These 3 are common in all 4 biomolecules, and they are linked by covalent bond, right? So you can look at, like, we are going back to levels of organization here, the atoms to molecules, macromolecules. So macromolecules are large, like I said earlier, of molecules that are composed of thousands of covalently linked atoms, right? So these atoms, the carbon, the hydrogen, the sulfur, and what have you, are linked by covalent bond in these macromolecules. So you can consider your macromolecule as a city, right? The buildings are the organelles, the bricks are molecules. So macromolecules are what? Are the building blocks of life, of the cell, right? Macromolecules are the building block of the cell because, like I said earlier, organelles perform certain functions for the cell, but they don't just do it on their own, but they send what? They send macromolecules to go and affect certain things in the body in form of protein and what have you, and hormones and what have you in the system. Okay, before we delve further, by recap, we said biological molecules are molecules that occur naturally in the body, and they help the body to perform certain functions. They are obtained from the foods that we eat. I've said there are 4 major classes of them: the carbohydrates, the lipids, the proteins, and the nucleic acids. We said that these macromolecules are also polymers. right, that are made up of monomers, right? And the monomers of carbohydrates are monosaccharides. The monomers of proteins are amino acids. The monomers of nucleic acids are nucleotides. We said lipids are not polymers. So of the four biological molecules, three are polymers. The remaining one is not a polymer. So which is the lipids. So if I ask you, pick the odd one out of the four, you might be wondering, they are all biomolecules, but they are different. One of them is odd. One of them is different from the others in that all others are polymers, but that particular one, lipid, is not a polymer, right? So if I ask you which of the following is different from the others, and I list carbohydrates, B, lipids, C, protein, D, nucleic acid. The one that is different from them is what? Is lipids, because lipid is not a polymer. Why is lipid not a? Please don't drop question in my chat room when I have not asked for question. Calm down. And if you cannot calm down, please, you can excuse us. Okay. Functions of biomolecules. They have different functions, right? Like, for instance, I only have one example, one function for each of them here. You will agree with me that there are myriads of functions that these biomolecules perform. So, assignment number 1 for today, go and look for functions of these different biomolecules, at least five for each of them. Some of them have up to 10 functions they perform in the body, but at least 5 functions of carbohydrates, 5 functions of lipids, 5 functions of proteins, 5 functions of nucleic acids that they perform, and put them down in your notes if you have one, right? Okay, carbohydrates are the body's main source of energy. This is what the general function that we all know that they perform, but I can assure you that they do more than that. Lipids provides energy, reserves energy. Proteins helps us to stay strong, fight diseases, and some other functions that it does. Nucleic acids are responsible for the uniqueness that we see in living things, especially sexually reproducing organisms, because our DNA is different. We have different parents, and we take DNA from our mother and our father. As a result of that, there are bound to be differences. And there are no two individuals that have the same DNA components, except identical twins. So when you do your class, when you have your class on a cellular reproduction, you are going to be taught how these differences between even organisms of the same species come by. Okay. We said macromolecules are polymers. We have said this before because they are built from monomers. A polymer is a long molecule that is made up of repeated subunits known as monomers. We said 3 of the 4 are polymers. We have said that before. And the other one, lipid, is not a polymer. A dehydration reaction. So how do you make polymers? We said it's just like you want to make your block to build house. What are the monomers that you need? You need what's it called? You want to make eba, for instance, you need gari and hot water. You want to make block, you need sand and cement and what have you. But in this type of polymers, you are not using sand and cement. You are using sand all through. You are using only one monomer, right? So if we have only one monomer, how do 10 monomers come together to make a polymer? For instance, how do 20 amino acids, for instance, or 1,000 amino acids come together to make a protein, right? That occurs by dehydration reaction. Dehydration, a form of condensation, whereby each of the monomers, when they come together, there is a loss of water molecule, right? From 2, when they come together, there's a loss of water molecule. That is, a dehydration reaction is taking place when 2 monomers come together to form a dimer, right? 2, dimer, 1, mono. So the repeating units, the monomers one of them come together, each of them come together. When two comes together, they lose a water molecule. When another subunit join in to make the third one, between the second and the third, a water molecule is lost. When another one comes between the third and the fourth, between the fourth and the fifth, between the fifth and the sixth, a water molecule is lost, right? Okay, and you call that a dehydration reaction when two monomers come together to lose a water molecule to condense and form a polymer. Then when you want to make it's like a form of reversible reaction. You can make and you can break, right? To make is dehydration. To break, what you lose, you just add it back, which is a form of a hydrolysis. So hydrolysis helps us to get monomers back from polymers. Why dehydration helps us to get polymers from monomers? That is, the coming together of monomers is dehydration reaction to form polymers. Then when you want to break down your polymers into the respective monomers or repeating units or subunits, you have hydrolysis reaction. So this slide shows us how a dehydration reaction occurs between two glucose molecules, which are monomers, to form a maltose, which is a dimer or your disaccharide, right? So you can see two glucose molecules there, one on the other, two, see one is losing hydrogen, the other one is losing hydroxyl group. When they come together, you have H2O, that is water molecule is removed, and you can see between them a bond is formed. And the type of bond that is formed from these two sugars is glycosidic bond. We're going to look at it later. Okay, then this also shows hydrogen, then the hydroxyl group go to where it is left. Then you have your two glucose molecules from your polymers. Okay, we said macromolecules polymers. We said carbohydrates, the monomer acidic bond. That is, when two monosaccharides, when two glucose molecules come together, right? A type of bond is formed between them. And the type of bond that is formed between two sugars to form a dimer is known as a glycosidic bond. Please don't be confused. This type of bond is different from your covalent bond that is formed between atoms. Specifically, the atoms that make up these, for instance, your carbohydrate is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, CHO, right? So the type of bond that you will see between these atoms, between carbon and hydrogen and oxygen to form a glucose molecule, for instance, are the covalent bond. But when you now have two glucose molecules, in one glucose molecule, you have covalent bond. But when you now have two glucose molecules coming together to form a maltose, for instance, or a disaccharide or polysaccharide, when you have repeated 1,000 units of glucose coming together to form your polysaccharide, the type of bond that is found between them is glycosidic bond. That is, glycosidic bonds are found between two monosaccharides to form a disaccharide or trisaccharides or polysaccharides. I hope that is clear. Then in proteins, protein is a polymer, and the amino acids are the monomers. They form protein. Protein is a polypeptide. And the type of bond that is formed between amino acids in protein is known as a peptide bond. That is, when two amino acids come together to form a polypeptide chain. A polypeptide chain is the bond between them is what? Peptide bond. Nucleic acids. Like I said earlier, there are two types of nucleic acids. You have your DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and your RNA, ribonucleic acid. They are polymers. The monomers are nucleotides. We are going to see what nucleotides are in this lecture. So please, if I say anything you don't understand, you can wait till the end of the lecture or till we move some steps further in the lecture. before you begin to doubt. Just note. Then if you don't mention it, that means you need to ask. Somebody was asking me, why are lipids not referred to as polymers? Your answer is here. If you had waited a bit, you will have seen your answer. You've seen the answer to the question. So if you don't know what nucleotides are, I just told you that nucleotides are the monomers of nucleic acid. We will still deal with nucleotides along the lecture, right? So please, you can note your question down. If I open the floor for question, you can ask. Don't. Okay. Thank you. So lipids are not considered as polymers because they don't have known monomers. They don't have monomers. They just exist as lipids. Okay. I hope that answers the question of the individual that asked earlier. So let's pick these biomolecules one after the other and say one or two things about them. But before we proceed, do we have any question? Does anyone have any question? You can drop your question in the chat room. Except from I can't hear you. Except I can't hear you. I don't want to hear I can't hear you. You can't hear me, it's your network. Go and sue MTN or Glo. Okay. Do we have any question? Let's see. Let's go to YouTube. Okay, what are monomers? Okay. Did you just join the class? Those of you on YouTube, good morning. How are you? You are not forgotten. We are with you. Do you have any question? If you have a question, you can drop it on the YouTube. I can't see any question here. Change. What is this? Is attendance you are dropping? Good. Please, as you join YouTube, you can drop your attendance. On Zoom, don't need to drop attendance. I will capture my attendance. Please, is anyone seeing the screen? I think I asked this question earlier. Those of you on YouTube, can you see my screen? Please, I want to read from YouTube. Can you see my screen? Because what I'm seeing displayed here is my DP, my picture. It should change to the slides. It should change to the slides, to my lecture slide. Please, can you explain slide 11 again? Okay, that means you can see the slides. Okay. Okay, that means you can see my slides on YouTube as well. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to confirm that you are not okay. Somebody asked what are monomers on here? Can more than two polymers come together? Yes, definitely. Lipids are not polymers due to the fact that they lack monomers. What then do we classify them? What then do we classify them? What then do we classify them? Group fatty acids and glycerols. I don't understand what you are saying there. Is aldehyde and ketone the same thing as aldose as ketos? I've not explained that. Wait, I'm coming. What is this? Explain the difference between covalent bond and the bonds in monomers forming the polysaccharides. Okay. Okay, I think I've picked two questions to. Please, okay, let me address some of the issues that you raised. Somebody said I should explain slide 11 again. Okay, from YouTube. Okay, first question I see from there is that what are monomers? Monomers are repeating units of polymers, right? Like monomers are smaller subunits, small subunits that come together to form a polymer, right? It's just like when you have an organism and group of organisms. Group of organisms make a population, right? But one individual is an organism, right? Like one as it's a unit, is a monomer. But when you have them come together in many places or multiple or many in many places, like you have 1,000 units of monomers, even 10 is a polymer. In fact, 2 is a polymer, right? Although you can also say it's a dimer, but it is now it's no longer a monomer. For instance, your maltose, which is from glucose and glucose, is not a monomer. The glucose that come together to make what's it called? To make the glucose molecules that come together to make a maltose are monomers. But as the moment they